It's our old friend Bernie. Bernie actually did something decent this week. Bernie. That was from Weekend at Bernie's. So,
fucking. Sorry.
But it's not just really Bernie. It's actually even more of a legend than Bernie because it is Ralph Nader. So shout out to Ralph Nader, who at 92 years old is still doing it. He's doing it here at ScheerPost. It was shared at CommonDreams. He publishes everywhere. Love Ralph Nader. God bless him. We need more Ralph Naders that are just, he's a passionate champion calling out corporate every day. You know, and again, I got yelled at today. Why do you care so much about all this stuff? And every conversation comes back to corruption and greed and what's happening with big corporations. You know why? Because everything that we see, think, control, and know, and everything that all these sheep around us are thinking is because of that. So, yeah, when you talk about a millionaire golfer.
Reply with the Wu-Tang, right?
Right. Well, you got to diversify your bonds. But
cash rules everything around me.
Cream, get the money. You know? That's right. So again, corporate media, surprisingly enough, ignores Senate hearing on corporate greed and inflation. The lack of coverage on corporate greed reflects the influence that corporate advertisers have on mainstream media. Captain Obvious kind of stuff. However, I didn't hear about that. I did hear a little bit about a hearing on Capitol Hill, but I don't think that it was about this. So exceedingly rare for a major congressional committee to hold hearings on corporate greed, leading to corporate profiteering and surging prices on consumer goods in general. That alone is a true statement in itself, right? On April 5th, Bernie Sanders charted uncensored territory on corporate service with the lead witness, Robert Reich, now professor at University of Cal Berkeley. Again, we're not such great fans of Robert Reich in general. I have plenty of issues with him, and he appeared on MSNBC with Chris Smalls this week, and I thought it was kind of insulting the way that they tried to frame that, and they put him in the middle, and him being a former Clinton guy, it was just, the whole thing was gross to me and how they were trying to frame it, and the dog whistling and the visual optics of all of it, putting him in between two suited white guys in general, and Robert Reich there to be like the benevolent guy that kind of said, oh yeah, what he did was actually a good thing, yeah, and it was ridiculous. The whole thing's just, again, insulting. So corporate greed takes hundreds of thousands of American lives every year. Think the opioid disaster, tobacco, toxins in the air, water, not to mention injuries, illnesses from corporations that put extra profit over concerns about public health and safety. Hello, Amazon, considering what we just talked about. All right. However, at the Senate hearing, Sanders chose to focus on the economic exploitation of consumers. Here is his introductory remark, and quote, "Across every major industry, prices continue to rise. This includes a 38% increase in the price of gasoline, a 44% increase in the price of heating oil, a 41% increase in the price of a used car, a 24% increase in the price of rental cars, and a 17% increase in the price of furniture. Further, Tyson Foods
and the 99% of the 1%. Go ahead.
Tyson Foods recently increased beef prices by 32%, the price of chicken by 20%, and the price of pork by 13%. As prices increase, corporate profits hit a record high of nearly $3 trillion in 2021, up 25% in a single year."
And look at Bernie knowing about the 13% on pork, you know?
Somebody assembled that for him, but that's a nice speech. When it's completely ignored and useless. Thanks, Bernie. Thanks for telling us what. Yes, it is. We have seen all of this happen, and corporate greed and profits have continued to rise. Okay, he might have added that companies profiting from these price increases paid a low record amount in federal income taxes, and that the net worth of the richest shareholders soared in the midst of the pandemic. Because Ralph Nader is a legend, and Ralph Nader really calls it out. And Sanders didn't want to become Ralph Nader. But Ralph Nader actually unabashedly and unashamedly calls out the corruption, and we love him for it. Bless him for it. So Sanders announced $900 billion in stock buybacks last year alone, which is a sign of excessive pricing power. 2020, He added the CEOs of major U.S. companies on average 350 times more than the average median worker. Again, another conversation I was having with my father, the disparity in CEO pay and the gross wealth inequality gap between, and he even said, is Tim Cook worth $95 million a year? $50,000 an hour? I said, no. Nobody's worth $95 million. Well, I disagree because he's making them billions. Yes, and if they gave somebody a shot for $20 million, guess what? They would do just as well, if not better, than Tim Cook. But they put him there, and they gave him that money. And that's what they decided the market is, and that's what he decided the market is.
He makes a mean cup of coffee for the shareholders, all right? You know, like that's his job.
Right? Big corporate again. This is I love how Ralph writes. Okay, Ralph just writes and writes and writes, and he never stops. And he still does a weekly radio hour podcast. All right, but again, he's talking about Lindsey Graham and how markets are not competitive. And Reich rebutted the corporate excuses for the higher prices by pointing out the detrimental impact on consumers of concentrated corporate power, gas and meat, profits at 70-year high. And the company's flush with cash. Why are they raising prices? Because they can. And because they don't face meaningful competition. And they face no consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Just the reverse is true.
How South... Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just saying it's like that South Park bit about Comcast. You know?
Mm-hmm.
People remember that one. You remember?
Remember berries.
Just the reverse is true.
You know?
The industry is dominated by a few corporations, have the power to it's
yeah, that's what's happening. Again, it's that we're having this passed on again, and this article has a link to the actual hearing itself. Lindsey Graham, there's Blanche Dubois. Of course, he had to have something to say.
I mean, I feel like Bernie could have not voted for that giant influx of wealth, you know, during the pandemic. That would have been nice.
Well,
you know,
if we had to get the money to people somehow.
Sure. You know, when do we want the change? In due time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
this is the usual GOP routine of blaming the government for everything, even a government under the thumb of the corporate lobby. Neglected to mention that given soaring profits, companies in a competitive industry would absorb rising costs to keep their customers. Instead, they're passing on those costs plus adding profit, fueling ever higher inflation. Right. So again, Biden White House has proposed stronger antitrust and consumer protection measures. They want to tax billionaires and unproductive stock buybacks, latter being but donors are never going to allow it. Besides, both parties are dialing for the same corporate campaign cash. Media blackout on Sanders' hearing is partly his fault. He knows how to hold a highly energetic public hearing. You have witnesses who worked in the trenches against corporate profiteering, victims of these profiteers, and subpoenaing corporate executives like Tim Cook if they don't testify voluntarily. There needs to be proponents of strong corporate crime legislation. But again, this is window dressing.
Yeah.
The knowledgeable civic community is not catching the ears of the Democratic Party candidates. Regular reports show incumbent Democrats feeling despair and defeatism over the prospect of the lying, corrupt, corporatist, clever GOP taking control of Congress next year. Except that they're also lying, corrupt, control, corporatist, and clever. And I think that Ralph kind of calls that out, but he sees exactly who's going to take over next year, and he is saying that that is what they see happening. Wake up to the winning ways of addressing all the people. Of course, learn from FDR. Yes, Ralph. Ralph is still an activist, an optimist, more importantly than anything. And
make sure you don't get polio.
He's a national,
most importantly,
fucking treasure. And damn, man, has this guy been a disappointment? What a disappointment. And on that note, it's a good what? Good bread. That's some good bread. And we hit it at exactly 1 hour and 4 minutes. That's nice. It's going to be a short podcast for everybody. Nice. Hashtag Team Meteor. Yes. Okay. Now we can get to a few chats. Extra. Okay. Uncle Warren is in the chat. What's going on, Warren? Nader would often appear back on Meet the Press. Yes, he would. And it was nice when they actually used to put people. Yes, Nader. Seems like yesterday. Was it 92? No, Nader was 2000 and then 04.
2000. Don't be a hater. Vote Ralph Nader.
Okay, there's shout out to Oz, Roar Media, King of Kings.
What's up, Oz? King of Kings.
Thanks, dude.
Ruler of Dirt.
Yeah, one count for every time he got punched is the chat of the night, by the way. Tommy
It is
Nation,
ridiculous, yeah.
I think I might have to send you a t-shirt for that. Seriously, man. That's some awesome stuff.
You get the gold star.